This is Lauren Burke. This is Lauren Live. Breaking news out of the BAFTAs. Breaking news out of the BAFTA awards, where we have a situation where somebody yells the N word at Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo at during their presentation. Both of them, of course, are standing on stage together. And interestingly enough, there's some interesting details around the story, which are that this broadcast has a 2-hour delay. I found that very interesting. 2-hour delay, and somehow during that 2-hour delay, nobody thought to take the N word out of the broadcast. I thought that was crazy. At any rate, this is Lauren Burke. I'm going to run part of the intro. I'll be back in a second. Yes. This is Lauren Burke, and this is typically a topic I wouldn't talk that much about. You could kind of put it under the heading of some sort of freak thing that happened that, may or may not be important. It really is more about this conversation is more about the reaction to it than it is the thing itself. The BAFTA awards were yesterday. The BAFTA awards are the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, sort of like our Oscars. They happened yesterday. And of course, Sinners was a major point of focus at the BAFTAs, as it probably will be the case at the Oscars, because of course, Sinners has gotten a record number of nominations. And there was a point in the broadcast where, of course, you have presenters from usually the films that have been nominated. And of course, the actors Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan are both, of course, in Sinners. They get up on the stage and, of course, they're presenting, somebody something. I had not watched any of this other than the clips of relevance, one of which I'll show in a minute. And someone yells the N word at them. It turns out that the person is a man who is featured in a film. He is, of course, he has about Tourette's, and so one of the features of Tourette's syndrome is yelling inappropriate things. Whether that is the case or not, it is interesting to note that these people at the BBC had 2 hours. They had this show on a 2-hour delay. Okay? Not 30 seconds, not 2 minutes. Typically, it's customary that a lot of these award shows have, delays, as we all know, so that somebody in the back can censor whatever is said on stage that they don't like, and now we're gonna bleep it out. Of course, that can be profanity, that can be political statements, that can be anything. We saw at the Grammys that there were a lot of political statements against ICE, for example. But in this case, the BBC had 2 hours to delay, to take, to change, to edit, to do whatever the heck they needed to do with this show. And someone back there decides not to edit out the N-word? Explain that to me. I'm gonna read Variety. for a second here because Variety does a very good job, as I think most people know. Even though their owners can be questioned, Variety does a good job at entertainment reporting. So here's the Variety's take on it. This is, I think this is maybe an opinion piece because this thing has a lot of attitude to it. But nonetheless, BAFTA and BBC let the N-word air on tape delay. Michael B. Jordan, Delroy Lindo, the Tourette's community, and viewers deserve an apology. This cannot be overstated. BAFTA and the BBC failed us all. During the 79th BAFTA Film Awards, host Alan Cumming paused the ceremony to thank the audience for its understanding after a series of audible outbursts from Tourette's campaigner John Davidson interrupted the show. One of those outbursts, heard while Sinners stars Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo were on stage, included the N-word. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you think that would have been edited out if you had 2 hours to edit stuff out? Davidson, who was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome at 25 and whose experiences inspired the BAFTA-nominated film I Swear, lives with tics that can include involuntary vocal outbursts. Addressing the room, Cummings said, "You may have noticed some strong language in the background there. This can be part of how Tourette syndrome shows up for some people as the film explores that experience." Yeah, it was strong language, all right. If you feel uncomfortable watching it, you're not alone. If you felt heartbroken, you're not alone. If you felt angry, confused, or unaware of what to say, you're not alone there either. But before declarations are made, before sides are chosen and hashtags are weaponized, a baseline point has to be made plainly. The primary failure here rests with BAFTA and the BBC. That is no joke. I mean, how the heck did they let that get broadcast? Now, somebody, I don't know if it's accurate, and I probably shouldn't have retweeted it because I don't know if it's accurate. Someone retweeted this morning that someone on stage at the BAFTAs said "Free Palestine." Now, of course, that would not surprise me because almost every award show that we see now, somebody gets up and says "Free Palestine." And apparently, that was deleted from the show during this 2-hour delay decision. Apparently. Now, I can't confirm that because I didn't see the show. So I don't know, but that was something that somebody put on social media, and that sounds about right. That sounds like something that could be very accurate, but again, it does require some fact checking because you got to fact check that because people like to put stuff up to be incendiary, as everybody knows, on social media, and that could be one of those things. But that is a very crazy thing that this happened, given the backstory of the 2-hour delay. Now, ordinarily, of course, if this was a live show or it only had, like, let's say a 10-second delay, you could understand the idea of, okay, we didn't catch it. I mean, you got to be pretty fast. You're sitting there in the booth and you're the person in charge of bleeping stuff out and you miss it, which has happened a lot of times. And, a lot of times you watch an award show and they'll bleep stuff out and they'll bleep the wrong thing out. And there's audio missing in the show. You're listening to the show and there's this audio. There's like an audio gap. And usually that's what it is. The censor is in the back and they miss it. I mean, they just miss it. And when they miss it, it's like, okay, what just happened? It's almost like confusing as to what happened, but that happens all the time. But when you have a 2-hour delay, are you kidding me? How did you miss it during a 2-hour delay? So I found that to be wild. That there was a 2-hour delay. I was unaware that there was a 2-hour delay for that show. In fact, I kind of think it's a little bit strange. That's one hell of a delay. I've never heard of a 2-hour delay for an award show, but again, this is England. I wouldn't know one way or the other. But let's play the moment in question here that happened at the BAFTAs yesterday. Am I sharing the right screen? Yes.
Delroy and I are delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making. We're here.
Now, you can see Delroy Lindo pause. It's sort of obvious that he has heard exactly the N-word, and he pauses and looks out there. In fact, somebody caught that reaction in a still photo.
Delroy and I are delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making. We're here to celebrate.
So, obviously they were caught off guard. And of course, the two of them deserve an apology of some type. Lord knows if they were in any other group, right? Right. I mean, any other group. Imagine the C word being thrown at two women standing up there. Imagine the mayhem that would ensue if that happened. And so it's interesting in the grand lexicon of naughty language that we're all aware of, whether it's the language of bigotry, whether it's four-letter words, whether it's anything, okay? Um, really? I mean, you let that get broadcast, and man, should there be an apology for that one. Now we have the news this morning. You kind of have to be careful with the Daily Mail. This is a news source that a lot of times, they do report some sensational stuff. And I got to admit that a lot of times they're accurate. And it turns out later that they're accurate. But they reported this morning, Daily Mail reported this morning that there was another actress that was the target of the same person, which, you know, I thought was interesting because nobody had heard anything about this until I think this morning. Um, Let me just read 1 second. He could be heard. A black co-star, a black Oscar-winning production designer. Yeah, this is the story. So this is the Daily Mail. Sinners producer says BAFTA British Tourette actor also hurled N-word at her after he shouted it at stars Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo. This is again the Daily Mail, based in Great Britain. A black Oscar-winning production designer says Tourette campaigner John Davidson called her the N-word at Sunday's BAFTA Awards, where he hurled the same slur at actors Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo. Hannah Betchler, who became the first African American to win an Academy Award for production design in 2018 for Black Panther, took to X after Davidson's involuntary outburst made headlines on Sunday. He could be heard shouting the N-word at Jordan and Lindo while the two Sinners actors were on stage in London Sunday night with microphones picking up the racist term. Betchler wrote on X, I keep trying to write about what happened at the BAFTAs and I can't find the words. The situation is almost impossible, but it happened 3 times that night. And one of the 3 times was directed at myself on the way to dinner after the show. Betchler said Betchler said the other person Davidson shouted at was also a black woman. And although she acknowledged it was an impossible situation, she criticized the apology from awards host Alan Cumming. I know we must handle this with grace and continue to push through, but that made the situation worse. I'm sorry. But what made the situation worse was the throwaway apology of if you were offended at the end of the show. She said the apologies have been absolutely lame. So that absolutely there's some big problems in apology land. Of course we were offended, but our frequency, our spiritual vibration is tuned to a higher level than what happened. I am not steel. This did not bounce off me, but I exist above it. It can't take away from who I am as an artist. I mean, black people all the time, in case you don't know out there, are asked to just forgive everything, right? I mean, everything is, oh, just forget about it. That's what we're told all the time. Don't center your history. Don't center yourself. Just let it go, all that stuff. And this is going to be one that's going to be hard. It is a major award ceremony. And you have somebody, although one could argue that the reasons are understandable and he has Tourette's syndrome, that's a little bit interesting as well, right? Because, like I said, of all the words in the lexicon of naughty language that we're all aware of, it's interesting that the N word is the one that he lands on. It could have been any of a number of slurs, right? I mean, it's amazing, right? It's not to say it would have been okay if it had been somebody else. Of course not. But it could have been any one of a number of slurs out there. And the N word is the one. You got to figure, too, you're in England at the BAFTAs. Probably not a whole lot of black people there. Probably not a whole lot of black people. There are probably other ethnic groups out there that represent a uh, bigger part of the population, a big part of the minority population at that award show, and yet none of them have to deal with this. And you got two of the biggest stars in one of the biggest movies, one of the highest, it was the highest grossing movie of last year, standing on stage, and they've got to take that. Please hit the like button. Really appreciate it. And so I am a little bit like, really? I know that when this was first tossed out there, the attitude was, no big deal. You know, the guy's got Tourette's. There was, you could see the sort of thing forming of, well, he's got Tourette's, so it's all is forgiven, you know, no big deal. Well, it's again, it's not so much about that as it is the way that it was reacted to by everyone who is in control of the broadcast of the show. And there's a few entities there. And not just Alan Cumming, who is hosting the show. Although, yes, he's entity number one because he's standing on stage. He had the most control over how to deal with that than anybody because he's standing on stage. He's got the mic in his face, and you know there probably should have been something really emphatically said there, like, you know, it's outrageous, and it's too, you know, we really apologize to Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo. It shouldn't have happened. Uh, this is something that obviously this person is suffering from this disease, and but at the same time, we're sorry you had to. But none of that happens, right? Like none of that happens. It's just kind of like, you know, there was some strong language. Really, you're defining that as strong language? BBC, this is the Guardian. BBC apologizes again for BAFTA's N-word incident as show removed from iPlayer for re-edit. Yeah, I bet it was removed from iPlayer for a re-edit. Corporation says it is sorry that racial slurs spoken involuntarily during ceremony by John Davidson, who has Tourette's syndrome, was not edited out before the broadcast. That's where I'm at. That is exactly where I'm at. Why did that not get edited out of the broadcast? Why did that not get edited out of the broadcast? How did that not get edited out of the broadcast? I mean, everyone knew by then what had happened because Alan Cummings says on stage something, right? So you know something was yelled at these guys, right? So if you're the editor in the back that has 2 hours to fix this, you would be honing in on that. You would be saying, "Wait a minute, what's going on?" Now, this is why I always say about journalism that it really is about who controls the editing and who controls the selection of stories is the entire ball game. The entire ball game. And in this case, who controlled that was Alan Cumming, who was the host of the show, the producers sitting in the back. Obviously, you have a whole control room of people. You have the producers in the back, and then you have the people after the show is really over, who have a 2 hour period in which to figure out what they're going to cut that's going to be part of the show. Now, apparently, all of those people making those decisions, none of them seem to think that there was a serious problem with stopping the show or creating some sort of situation where, okay, we're not going to broadcast that, right? Think about that. So it tells you a little bit something without even knowing it, tells you who was likely back there in charge of the show, who is likely back there making a decision, who is likely back there saying, no big deal, let's just let it go. Who would that likely be? And that's why when you don't have a certain level of diversity at these places and a certain level of different people with different views of the world, and different people with different views of the world allows a situation where one of them is probably going to raise their hand and say, hey, you know, it might be a good idea to edit that out. And of course, that diversity includes gender, that diversity includes, I think it includes economics. That's a little harder to get at because when you interview somebody for a job, you can't say to them, well, okay, how much money, what social strata are you in? What economic strata are you in? I mean, you're not gonna have that conversation generally at a job interview. But I will say this is the thing when everybody sort of thinks the same in a situation, in a journalistic situation, when everybody thinks the same and they're sitting in a situation, they don't view these things as a big deal because these things are not a big deal in their lives. These things are not a big deal in their experience. Okay, said the N word. Okay, you can just imagine the discussion back there. Okay, so no big deal. It happened, but had that been something else, had that been another group, had that been, like I said, had that been gender, a gender related word, that would have been game set match in terms of them editing it out. I mean, they would have edited it out. But when it comes to the N word, we're keeping it, and that's probably because there's nobody. Not that you should need anybody back there that's black to tell you, but apparently they did need somebody black back there to tell them, right? Because they didn't edit it out. They didn't think it was a big deal. So that is very interesting with regard to this story. Um, a lot of people would shrug their shoulders and say, "Oh, it's a fluke. Who cares? No big deal." But if you're the person it's directed at, you're gonna have a different view of the thing. There's no doubt about it. Nobody's taking that, whatever group that you happen to be in. If the word for your group, if the pejorative for your group was hurled at you during a national broadcast with millions and millions of people watching, you're not going to like that very much at all. And it's remembered now, that night for Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan, that night is changed and altered forever, because now that night is about that incident. Anytime we think of these BAFTAs in 2026, they're going to be remembered as the BAFTAs of the N word. You can't get around that. It is going to be remembered as the BAFTAs of the N word. Okay. And it's as simple as that. Now, hopefully, we get to a space where during the Oscars, there will be I guarantee you, whoever's hosting the Oscars, let me go see who's hosting the Oscars, they will say something about this. Okay, the Oscars are in like 3 or 4 weeks, right? And they'll probably make a very clever joke about this. It's gonna be hard to do, but these comedians that host the Oscars are extremely talented. Conan O'Brien. So Conan O'Brien is going to be hosting the Oscars on March 15. And you know that Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan are going to be standing on that stage. Okay. And thanks, PAZT6XU. Thank you so much for the $9. I really appreciate that. And this, I'll read out this comment. Thank you for calling this out. These same non-black folks will bully black entertainers, take stands. Who takes stands. That's right. But when black folks get called slurs, we are told to shut up and take it. That's exactly right. I mean, it's like, oh, no big deal. And the first messaging that came out on this was so intriguing to watch, because of course it leaned heavily in. I get it. I get why they were leaning heavily in on the Tourette's issue. The guy's got Tourette's. One of the features of Tourette's are verbal outbursts. But after we process that, think about it. Whether it was because of Tourette's or anything else, it happened. It is a major racial slur. It happened on a major broadcast at a major award ceremony that millions of people are watching. And you're telling me you got a 2-hour delay to fix that and you don't fix it? And on top of everything else, not that it matters, but it just so happens that two of the biggest black stars were the victims of that moment. Right? Michael B. Jordan is black male star number one right now. Number one around the world. Michael B. Jordan. He is the Denzel Washington of this moment in time. And Delroy Lindo, as everybody knows, is a veteran actor who's been around forever, who happens to have been nominated for an Oscar this year, which on March 15 we'll find out whether or not he won it. I mean, it wouldn't matter if they were B or D list stars, don't get me wrong, because this is wrong no matter what. But it just so happens that the two people on that stage, Delroy Lindo and Michael B. Jordan, are massive stars. Massive, massive Hollywood. So that also makes me say to myself, why the hell wasn't this edited out? So thanks again to PAZT6XU for the super chat. Really appreciate it. They want to normalize the N word by another means. Hey, Mike. Sort of like calling Governor Moore and Mayor Brandon Scott and Maryland DEI. That's right. That's another little trick that gets pulled too. Everybody's DEI. Everybody, you're not here because you're smart. You're not here because you passed all the tests. You're not here because, you know, You did all these. I mean, Wes Moore's resume is absolutely ridiculous. His career in the army alone is absolutely ridiculous. Of course, they tried to put a dent in that as well. That's part of the PR as well, right? It's all nonsense. People who have never served in the military criticizing Wes Moore is hilarious. But the other way they try to do it, and this is why Charlie Kirk, this is why I was never a fan of Charlie Kirk. He was always going after people. Of course, he was a college dropout, going after people like Ketanji Brown Jackson, who got into Harvard Law School, and is on the Supreme Court. That's who he goes after because he's jealous. I mean, it's all projection. The other day, it's all jealousy and projection. At any rate, getting back to this though, I guarantee you that Conan O'Brien will find some clever way on March 15 to deal with this. Because this is not cool on any level, and the way that it was handled is the part that is the worst part of it, because the way that you handle it is the whole ball game. They could have squashed this in 3 hours. Okay, they could have done this if they had done it right on the first apology. And now we're finding out that there's a set producer that also was yelled at by this guy. First of all, whoever the heck the team is around the guy who said it, they should have been the first ones out the gate. The first ones out the gate. John Davidson's team. I'm sure he has people around him, right? I mean, he's got, I'm sure, parents. I'm sure he's got friends. Even if he doesn't have an agent, which he probably does have an agent because the movie was about him. He may or may not have an agent. But the point is, whoever his representation is, maybe the actor who played him in the movie puts out a statement. Maybe the two of them get together and do a joint statement and say, look, this is something that is the result of this disease, Tourette syndrome. But also, we want to say that whether it is or not, it was a terrible thing that happened that was directed at these two actors. Shouldn't have happened, obviously. We apologize profusely. You know, beyond the scope of the affliction, et cetera, and so on. And we do ask people to understand, but we also acknowledge that what was said was hurtful, blah, 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 right? They're not doing that. You're not seeing that yet. Now, I think as the day goes on and the heat gets turned up a little hotter, you probably will see something like that. You probably will see some sort of, you know, incredible apology. And if you don't see it, what that tells you is where the standing of the feelings of Black people, where that stacks up. It tells you something about that. Because if nobody cares and everybody just acts like, oh, it's no big deal, get over it, which is typically what the African American community gets, right? It's always, oh, just get over it. Why you guys keep talking about slavery? You keep talking about slavery all the time, right? Get that all the time. No other group gets that except Black people. Forget about your history, forget about your pain, forget about the suffering of your ancestors. Shut up and stop talking about this stuff. That happens all the time. And really, in real time in the United States, we have a federal government that's trying to cover up slavery, that is trying to diminish the history of slavery. Why do you guys keep talking about that, right? Now, what other group? Name another group that has to put up with that. Being told to forget your history, being told that your pain doesn't matter, being told that your ancestors, your lineage doesn't matter. Who else is told that? Absolutely nobody that I can think of. I mean, tell me who else is told that. So I do think that this is shut up and dribble. LeBron is right. And this is a vestige of it. Everybody else can talk about whatever they like, right? Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson can run their mouth endlessly about whatever they want to, about great replacement theory and all this other stuff. They can talk on and on and on. And remember, in the case of Tucker Carlson, you're talking about a child of privilege. It's always fascinating when the people are wealthy and born into privilege and they're whining all the time. From Donald Trump on down, they're whining all the time about what? About what exactly? I have no idea. But again, to get back to this, watch how the day goes on, because you're going to get some professional communications, crisis communications people involved in this at some point. And as somebody who's been doing crisis communications, hopefully the response will get better as the day goes on. You can count on Variety really focusing on this. But again, If you remember back in the days of when Me Too was featured on the Grammys and at the Oscars, this is back in 2017, 2018, 2019, and Time's Up was on stage, and you had Rose McGowan with her fist in the air and all this other stuff that was going on with Me Too. All good. It's all good. Hey, have at it, right? Imagine if during that ceremony, somebody yelled out the C word at one of those women. I mean, just imagine in your mind what the PR would have been. Imagine in your mind what the response would have been. Oh, hell, all hell would have broken loose, you see. And it shows you which communities are powerful in these entertainment spaces. We understand that Black people are powerful in these entertainment spaces, even though we are not representing the majority in any way. But still, we're pretty powerful in entertainment spaces, And it's amazing though, that first tranche of communications that came out was weak. It was really, 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 really weak. Okay. And the weakness reflects the lack of concern for a certain community. And even with the fact that Sinners grossed all that money and is about to get a bunch of awards in all likelihood on March 15th at the Oscars and got an award at the BAFTAs and all that. I mean, it's still like we still can have something like this happen and everybody's like shrugging their shoulders. I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people shrugging their shoulders like, y'all take that. Y'all think about that. And these are two of the biggest stars of the year and of this era of movie making and entertainment. Wow. This is Lauren Burke. Please hit the like button. I would probably talk a little bit longer on this, but I think that pretty much sums it up. I do have a Zoom that I have to be on in a few seconds. Appreciate people hitting the like button, and I appreciate all the comments, even the ones I disagree with. Even the ones I disagree with, I appreciate the participation. This is a very interesting situation. And like I said, let's see how the day goes. Keep your eye on Variety and Hollywood Reporter and People Magazine. Rolling Stone will probably get into the act a little later, but Rolling Stone is weird when it comes to race. I don't know about Rolling Stone, but watch Variety and Hollywood Reporter. They're gonna probably have some deep diving on this. That's gonna be interesting. This is Lauren Berg. This is Lauren Live. I'll be back soon with something. I don't know what the next thing will be yet, but I'll be back soon.
Somewhere. What's going on? Thank you. Are you watching now?
Yeah. No, I was watching on the left, but it's excellent. I love it. I love the traffic's blowing up. You were in Brooklyn last night. Where?
I was in Bushwick.
Okay, my grandmother's house is in Crown Heights.
Oh, yeah.
So when I saw you, I was trying to look at what the pizza place was to see where
as soon as we got there, someone recognized the pizza place. They're like, we got to get out of here. Someone had
get out. It was great.
blown up our spot.
This show was freaking fantastic.
Thank you.
Love it. Love it, man. Love it.